Welcome to HortTube, where we talk all things gardening. My name is Jim Putnam, and this is a Carolina Jessamine. This is Carolina Jessamine, or some people call it Carolina Jasmine. It's an evergreen vine that's native to the southeast United States. It's very fast growing, and it produces these wonderful, bright yellow flowers in the early to mid-spring. If Carolina Jasmine has something to climb on, it can quickly grow to 20 feet in length, but can be controlled kind of whatever height you would need it on whatever you have it climbing on, and kind of as wide as you want to let it get. It twines into whatever and wraps around whatever it's grabbing a hold of. It doesn't need to root onto what it's growing onto, so it doesn't typically destroy whatever it's growing on. Carolina Jasmine is a native to the southeast United States, and it will definitely grow in zone 7 to 9. Almost certainly, if you were putting this on a foundation in zone 6B, it'd probably be fine. It might take a little bit of winter damage, but this thing grows so vigorously in the spring, I don't think you'd really have a problem with it. Carolina Jasmine is very fast growing. Once this plant is established in the ground after maybe a year, I think it might be a little slow to start the first season, but once it's established in the ground for a year, it'll probably grow 3 to 5 feet in a single season, but it's pretty easy to control. In terms of sun or shade on Carolina Jessamine, this is definitely a native plant to the southeast. It'll actually grow in quite a bit of shade. The problem is, though, it doesn't bloom very well and it doesn't stay very full. It's very, very thin. So really, the more sun, the better in an ornamental application. Carolina Jasmine works great on a porch rail or a trellis that you've built, or along any kind of fence, a chain link fence. It will even climb a tree. Over time, it'd probably do damage to the tree it was growing on, but that's typically where it grows in the woods here in the southeast. Of course, the main feature with Carolina Jasmine is these bright yellow flowers, which typically occur in the early to mid-spring. They'll bloom about the same time azaleas will, maybe a little bit after. And if it stays cool in the spring, it'll be an extended period of time. If it gets really, really hot very quickly, it kind of shuts them off. This plant can also be planted with a Swamp Jessamine, which is a fall blooming variety that the two of them will intertwine together. And frequently, we'll see them actually sold together, grown together in the same pot, so you get spring and fall flowering, and the flowers look pretty much identical on the two of them. A lot of people say the flowers on Carolina Jessamine are fragrant. I can't smell it. I don't see it. They're very brightly colored. They're beautiful, but I never got any kind of fragrance from them. There probably really just isn't a lot to worry about with this plant. You could probably just dig the hole and slap it in the ground and it would be fine. I definitely elevate all plants when I'm planting them. I don't like to plant things flush. You end up over mulching them in time. You don't want to mulch anything or cover anything that's not covered when you purchase it. I would dig the hole the depth of the root ball and then put some loose soil back in the bottom of that hole, so that when you pull this out and set it in the ground, it's going to sit up a little bit above the surrounding soil, and then pull your loose soil up to the edge of that and then water it in really, really well. And when you mulch, you can mulch with whatever you want to, pine straw or hardwood mulch or brown mulch, whatever. Just let it fade out before it reaches the bottom of the plant, and you should be fine with this thing. If you want to put some compost in the soil, if you have sandier soils, or if you want to put some pine bark in, if you have really heavy clay soils and you're planting this along a foundation, it might end up keeping it too wet. In that case, I might mix some pine bark soil conditioner in with the clay, maybe 50-50 with whatever amount of clay you pull out of the hole, and that will help drain some of the water off of it. But like I say, anything you do with this plant, you're probably unlikely to kill it. In terms of watering your Carolina Jessamine, I don't think you're going to need to worry too much about this plant if it's on a foundation. After about 6 months of checking on it, probably going to be fine. Typically, foundations stay kind of wet. If you were using this out in open space, maybe along a fence or a place that's kind of notoriously dry, or if you're planting it where you're trying to grow it on a tree or something, and those tree roots are definitely going to steal water from it, then you may need to check on it a few times a summer. And if you water it, drown the entire space around it. Don't just water right at the base of the plant. You want the plant to be encouraged to go looking for water in the surrounding soils, and if you water just the middle of the plant and the soil around it's dry, the soil around it's just going to wick that water away anyway. I would definitely fertilize your Carolina Jessamine in the spring after they flower. The new growth on this plant actually looks great all season long. Any slow release outdoor fertilizer would be fine for this plant. I don't think it would matter. in terms of pruning your Carolina Jasmine, and you will have to prune this plant, 100% sure of it. It grows so fast. It can grow 4 and 5 feet in a single season if it's happy and healthy. So probably once a year, you're going to want to tame this plant. And I would cut it smaller than you want to keep it so that you can allow some of that new growth to come back out on it. And probably the best time to do it is going to be after it blooms in the spring. That's probably when I would go in and clean it up, get out the old dead stems that you can see, and just generally clean it up and shape it up. And if you fertilize it at that same time, it should flush out really, really quickly and look great all season. Really not a lot of pests to worry about on Carolina Jasmine. We'll see some leaf spotting during the season if the leaves stay wet for an abnormal length of time. This one has some of it on there now. We overhead irrigate in the nursery, and that's probably the actual cause here in the nursery, is the leaves staying wet for a prolonged period of time. Aphids will occasionally get on these in the spring on that newest tender growth, typical aphid behavior. I usually don't worry about it. They kind of quickly go away. Other predators come along and take care of them. At some point you can spray for them if you want to. There are chemical and non-chemical solutions for aphids available. These are pretty much deer proof. Deer rarely ever sample Carolina Jasmine. We're not really worried about that. So what are you waiting for? Even you can grow the low maintenance, fast growing, yellow flowering Carolina Jasmine. Thank you for watching, and if this video was helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for future videos. Also, comment below with any questions you have about Carolina Jasmine or any other evergreen vining plants. Thank you.